You know what I was thinking about today, Jen?
I wonder if it's the same thing I was thinking about. You go first.
I don't know. Were you thinking that you wish you'd been compromised in a ballroom?
No, I was thinking it's funny how every single fucking one of our episodes lately really feels like a metaphor for our internal struggle. Is everything ruined? Do you wish you were on the run and could escape this? How about on a fast horse? That's how I feel. But, sure.
Everything seems to go fine if you're compromised in a ballroom.
Sure. I'm sure that's totally how it worked. Yeah.
Oh, it's not at all how it worked. You became a pariah, but is that so wrong? Is that so bad? Welcome, everyone, to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor. And today's topic...
Ruination.
Ruination. A metaphor.
Oh, no, I'm compromised.
And not your banking passwords.
No. Oh, the good kind of compromised. But it's interesting because I had a different idea that I proposed. Right? I proposed a different idea first, and then we settled on this because we're going to hold that other idea for another episode, because I actually, as I was thinking about this episode and like doing a little rereading and like doing a little thinking about the books that I wanted to talk about, I was like, oh no, this actually is a very different
it's a different thing.
Topic than that. So but like somewhere on the family tree of that idea was this one, the sort of, what does it mean to be ruined? And why do we love books where people are ruined?
Well, and as I was doing some rereading and thinking, obviously this, I think, really skews historical. And I think we'll mostly talk about historicals. I found myself thinking and wondering, like, what would it look like? What does it mean? What does ruination mean in, like, a contemporary setting? And, right, like, it's not really analogous. I think it's different. And then the difference between a self-inflicted ruination versus...
Do you mean intentionally self-inflicted?
Yeah.
Right, because I feel like that's a different thing.
Well, we'll talk about it this is based on a book I read. One of the books.
Well, we don't have to save it for the pod. We're here.
I know. Well, I wanted to talk about it when we got to the book.
All right, fine. Let's talk about it when we get to the book.
We need to talk about Ruination first.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Okay, so Ruination. I don't have a single contemporary book on my list, though I would say that when you just said what you just said made me think of a specific book where I was like, oh, I guess there's like Ruination contemporary, but it doesn't hit the same.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to just trust the process. I have like 3 books on my list, but I trust by the end I will have talked about 17.
Okay.
I feel like I do feel like this is one of those topics where
you got to grease the oil, lube up the
ye old brain cells, whatever there are left.
You got a brain lube.
From the actual ruination we're experiencing.
Well, also, I'm still, listen, we've said this before, but Eric was right. I know it gives him a little bit of joy every time he hears us say it. So here it is. My gift to him this week is Eric was right. And while I do have some authors on my list who we have discussed before, I have, I think, all new books on my list.
Well, that's good for you. I have a couple that I've talked about before, but I do have a couple new ones that Well,
there are some classic. I also will say, like, well, we'll save it for the pod. Okay, let's talk, because I think there are some writers who write ruined characters
Correct.
Again and again and again.
Yes.
Like Lisa Kleypas.
I was like, wait, why are there 7?
I'm like, making a
list
list
on my list.
Every one of these is ruined.
Can I suggest that in contemporary, I think the author who does that would be Susan Elizabeth Phillips.
Oh, yeah. Well, she loves it's heroine against the wall.
Exactly. And I love that. So let's talk about, though, historical.
Because here's the
first.
truth, everyone. Men aren't ruined.
I mean, they are ruined, but not in the same way.
I mean, existentially, men are ruined, it seems.
Right.
But, okay. So here's the deal. So I think we're going to talk about the gender of it all. I think like there's a lot to get unpack here. But so for those of you who are new, Ruination, and for those of you who don't read historical, and oh my God, here's the other thing. So the survey is done, everybody.
Oh, yeah, tell me.
And we will start talking about results in a little bit when we've looked at it. But the reality is that I have peaked. And there are a few people who like, I think don't like.
I thought you meant like I've peaked, like I'm on the down slope, and I was like,
I mean, that's possible always, but that's just my
like, how
daily.
did you know?
I wake up and my morning mantra is "Good morning, sunshine. I have peaked." Anyway, but I have peeked at the results of the survey. And what's interesting is there are a lot of people who like, one thing we did not ask is what kind of romance do you listen to, what do you read, which feels dumb of us. Also, Eric was like, he had something too, and he was like, I can't believe it. Oh, where do you buy your books? Like literally where? Because Eric got on the Discord this week, everybody, and he was like, I think he said it nicer, but he was basically like, what is up with you people? Related to the buy links in all of our stuff, because we have been, all right, I'm like in 7 different directions. Just go with it. I have house guests coming today. It's a whole thing. I've been up for 3 hours. It's 8 a.m. So, okay, buy links. If you are interested in our buy links or interact with them at all, you will have noticed that if the book is available outside of Amazon, which obviously we understand that a lot of indie authors are still like in the Amazon universe, and we are very happy to support authors. Like first and foremost, we want to sell books. We want to sell good books. We want to encourage our listeners to interact with good books. So if your book is in KU, we're obviously very
happy
excited
to talk about
for
it.
You. Happy to talk about it. We did have somebody on the survey who was like, I stopped listening because you recommended too many books in KU. And I don't understand that. Like, we recommend books we love.
Yeah,
I can't.
We can't throttle our
like.
Yeah,
This podcast is free. So I'm sorry we lost you, but I can't change that for you. Anyway, but then there is this question of like, for a while after there was this discussion, like Bookshop was selling ebooks, like we were moving away from the Amazon, like the world domination of Jeff Bezos, now space domination of Jeff Bezos and Katy Perry. It feels weird. We don't think Katy Perry needs to be inflicted on the entire wide universe. And so we are linking to Bookshop now and then when we can. Like if the book is available wide and the ebook is available through Bookshop, we link to Bookshop. And for a while, y'all were buying books that way. Like we saw like, okay, people are clicking on these Bookshop links, like it's happening. But now it seems like people aren't clicking on those Bookshop links anymore. So we're sort of curious as to like, what's happening there. Anyway, Eric wandered into the Discord this week and was like, could somebody explain? But we didn't ask you on the survey.
I've switched to Kobo, which I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, I attempted a switch to Kobo and it didn't really take, but it seems to be taking better. And I think it just like really, but it's still like muscle memory is for me to like want to go to Amazon. So, but I think the thing I have a Kobo, and so it's also just kind of easy
it's in universe.
Yeah, right. So I am kind of dual platform right now.
I have switched to Bookshop for ebooks, and as you know, I don't really read in audio, but I have recently read a couple things in audio, and I bought them through Libro FM.
See, yeah.
So, but it is a pain in the ass, I'll be honest. And I think that's probably what's going on. Like Eric was like, I don't understand. And I was like, I understand. I think people were just like, it's like when you decide you're going to start working out and you're like, actually, I don't like lunges. I'm not doing them anymore.
I think for me, it's really hard because it feels like I have thousands of ebooks and they're all on my Kindle to like think about switching and, to have to kind of be like, well, where is that book? And you know what? Somebody once said, and I was like, that's a good point. She's like, you have like books on your bookshelf and some on the upstairs bookshelf and some on the downstairs, and you just have to find them. And like, you have to think about your digital book platforms as also just being like different shelves. And I was like, true enough. But yeah, so I think I'm a Kobo person. now.
I have no idea how we got down this rabbit hole, but here we are. Oh, because we didn't ask people on the survey what kinds of romance they read. Like, I would be really interested, like, how many people don't read historical or don't read contemporary?
Romantasy or whatever, yeah.
And it's interesting because I heard, because I sort of was vaguely looking at the comments, where there was a comment box, and there are like 1,500 people who filled out the survey. So it's, the comments are like a novel. And so, and I was scrolling, and somebody did say, like, I've never read a historical, right? Like, I don't even know where to start. Well, so for you, our singular listener who's never read a historical, but I don't think you're alone. I think that there are probably many people here who've never read a historical. And what I would say to you is Ruination is a very particular kind of flavor of historical. And I think that there are two versions of it. And maybe you tell me, Jen, if I'm right, and if there are more, or if there are more, or if I'm wrong. But I think the two versions are, one is she is ruined.
Yeah.
And the other is they are compromised.
Okay.
I mean, I think they are compromised is a layer. It's like a second layer of the she is ruined cake. No one cares if he's ruined.
I think there is like ruination is being used to control her. Like, right,
Yes.
the threat of ruination. Right. So I'm thinking of like Chasing Cassandra, Elisa Kleypas book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, essentially in order, the bad guy wants to force Cassandra to marry him, or it's a little bit more complicated, and like essentially like puts out some fake news that like she's been compromised. And then it's kind of like, how do you fight back against that? How do you prove you weren't ruined?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Can't be done. And so unless you are Tom Severin, in which case what you do is you buy the newspaper
Perfect.
and you force the editor to tell you who did it. And then you figure out who the bad guy is. And then you save the day and you marry Cassandra yourself. That is the only way out of such a trap.
Or in the Lorraine Heath book, where the Duke just instructs his descendants forever into eternity.
God.
To find the photographs.
Lorraine Heath. What a fucking genius you are.
And what I love about that is, listen, we've talked about this epilogue in ad nauseum.
It is
multiple.
The best epilogue in romance.
Duke, I forget the name of the Duke.
The
Duke Hunt?
The Duke Hunt. One of those.
The Duke Hunt.
I'll put it in show notes. Look down at your phone. I'll put the right one
Exactly.
right there.
The photo is there. So, but what's amazing about that is in one kind of like, whatever, like 10-page epilogue, not even like 6-page epilogue, she has established not only that like his power, his domination over the world is forever, but also that every single fucking Duke who came after him was just a decent goddamn person.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's unreal how she does that.
Yeah, it's perfect. It really is. It's amazing.
Anyway, but I also want to talk about sex, right? Because ruination in these books is almost always about sex.
Yeah.
If it's not about sex, it's about family and like reputation of the family.
Uh-huh.
But it's almost always about sex.
Agree.
And I mean, when I say almost, I mean like 90% of the time. So we have like a sex problem here, which is men are allowed to cat around, and they're like considered rakes who are sowing their wild oats like before they settle down. And even after they settle down, who cares if they have mistresses and like, whatever. But obviously, I mean, this is sort of like the most obvious statement I've ever made, but like women are not allowed to cat around, and they are judged for having a high body count or a body count at all.
Yeah, right.
To use the parlance of our time.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Jess K. Hardy, author of Wish You Were Here.
So everyone knows how much I love Jess's Bluebird Basin series. This is seasoned romance at its sexiest and its finest. And the third book in the Bluebird Basin series is out right now. This is it. And you've met these characters before. You've met Kevin. Kevin is one of the characters who was staying at Bluebird Basin on the ski hill in the first book and relapsed after rehab in the second book. And now he's back, and he has come to realize that he has never in his life loved anything the way he loved Davis Thompson. And she has never been so happy or so in love as she was with Kevin. The problem is addiction is brutal on people and the people who love them. And in order for Kev to win Davis back, he is going to have to recommit to her, to himself, and to reconciling with the secrets that they keep from each other and the ways that they have hurt each other throughout the series and before. This one is for anybody who really wants a brutal book about two broken people having to heal themselves before they heal each other. But don't discount the fact that this is going to have that signature Jess Hardy humor, that high heat seasoned romance that we all come to Jess for, and a really beautiful, redeemed, happy ending.
If you're interested in checking out Wish You Were Here, it is available with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. But if you are a completist and need to start with the first book of the series, Come As You Are is available right now for only 99 cents. So you can just go back to the beginning and start there. Either way, you are going to have a great time at Bluebird Basin. And if you click on the chapter title right now, you'll be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Jess K. Hardy for sponsoring this week's episode. So, can we talk, before we talk about other people's books, one of my favorite of your books?
Oh no.
Yes, which is A Scott in the Dark.
Oh, Lily and Alec.
Yeah, and you know what? I think like one of the things about this book that I really loved is that Lily is ruined essentially because she's lonely.
Lily's ruined by, like, she really trusted a person.
Yes.
The premise of this book is she really trusted a man who was an artist and who was like, you're my muse, and painted a nude of her.
Yeah.
And she thought they were going to be together.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
And she had no one else.
That's the loneliness part, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of historical heroines are like alone, but somehow, you know, I mean, I grew up on a certain kind of Garwood heroine, right? Which was like, I'm alone. No other women exist in the world, but somehow I'm perfectly happy, right? And content and awesome and, you know, whatever. It's like, but I mean, Lily was just so lonely.
She's sad, yeah.
And sad. And I wanted to just like sweep her into my arms and like be like, just sit down and watch some TV.
So did Alec. They didn't have TV, but that's what all he wanted was to break shit and love her.
Yeah. But I mean, I think the thing about her ruination, because there is proof, there's this painting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Proof. I think that's the part that I also thought was really brilliant about that book, was like making it wasn't just gossip and innuendo, right? Like there was something about it that made it so that everyone felt pretty sure that they knew exactly what had happened, right?
Right. Another piece of the puzzle is, so there are multiple kinds of ruination and they don't seem to matter to society, right? Like Lily is ruined by a terrible man who she really thought she thought she loved him. Like she trusted him and loved him and did this thing, and he wrecked her. Like he was a terrible person. And like nobody cares about that. Nobody's like, well, that's forgivable because she thought that it was going to end in like marriage and children and love, like in a future and happily ever after. There's no difference in society's eyes between that and, say, Joanna Shoop's The Harlot Countess, where Maggie, the protagonist, is ruined like with a near assault. You know, at the beginning of the book, or it's not at the beginning, but like, you know, in the past, like this is the instrument of her ruination. And
being a victim.
And like, no, it doesn't matter. Like it is, society paints these women with the broadest possible brush, just as it continues to. Like, what comes before has absolutely no power in shifting societal expectations.
Yeah. And I think the other of your heroines I really was interested in when I was thinking this way, and I know you hate talking about your books, but we'll just indulge me for one more second, is Felicity, who isn't really ruined necessarily, but her family, by putting her in these like really sort of precarious situations, you know, in terms of like, right, like going out into this like little marriage game, and, you know, that happened in Day of the Duchess, and, you know, ruins her because it isolates her in some sort of profound way, and she doesn't really understand the bigger picture.
Yep.
And so when she then sort of tells everybody like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna marry me or whatever, right, like she's just trying to get back with her friends. She like, they have cut her off. She doesn't really quite understand or realize what's happening until she gets like the key piece of information that her family is essentially destitute. Like her dumb fucking brother lost all their money. And it's not ruination in the sense that she is like ruined, like in the same way, but it is adjacent in the like, everything's fucked, right?
Everything's fucked.
Everything's fucked. And that's falling on you.
Yeah. You are the way that we can fix this.
So again, she's not ruined, but ruination, I do think broadly is interesting to me in the like, everything's fucked way as well.
Well, and as you just said, like, and here's a woman who's going to have to who's going to bear the brunt of it and like is the only instrument of saving.
Correct. And that's the part that's so
like, fuck everything.
Yeah. Like your body, right, is worth everything or nothing.
Yep.
Right. And if you decide to do with it versus us deciding to do with it, what to do with it, that's the right.
And we haven't even gotten to the ruination that comes from not being wanted. Right. So you're ruined if like you are found in a compromising or sexual position. But if you've gone 3 or 4 seasons, then you're spoiled. Like, you're just like on the shelf because like, who would want that? Why would you marry? Like, there must be something wrong with her. Right?
Yeah.
So like, we're not really talking about on the shelf, though that is an episode we should do because it's very fun. Spinsters are fun. Have we ever done a spinster episode?
No.
Oh, put it on the list.
I'm putting it on the list,
everybody. It's coming. And so there's that. And then there's this kind of bigger. So I think we should talk about gender too here, because I do think that like when a man is ruined in these books and like rendered is there anything that renders a man unmarriageable in these books?
Not if he's titled.
Not even like if he's thought to have killed his wife.
Right.
Which, like, a lot of these heroes are thought to have murdered their first wives.
Yeah.
They don't, by the way. That's never the case.
Right.
You're safe.
Yeah. I find this conversation, frankly, it's like really almost hard to have, considering I feel like we're seeing like the retrenching of sort of these gender roles, like the attempt to retrench these gender roles. Sure, we elected a rapist
president. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. The conversation over. Right. Like, so I think there is a sense that there's, you know, what's really possible or not. Now, it's interesting, though, because I will tell you, Sarah, I started a book, and I know we don't usually talk about books like that didn't work for us, but like that was like too much for me in this way. And it was Breathless by Anne Stewart. And I was like, well, Anne Stewart writes crazy.
Anne Stewart's been around for a million years.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was like, so I don't feel like I'm going to hurt Anne Stewart's feelings by saying this, but it was too much for me. Like I quit but I did.
Why? What was it about it?
So let me say, first of all, I think that this to me, it's like sometimes I see a claim that like, you know, like old school bodice rippers or whatever are like early dark romance. And I'm always kind of like a little suspicious of that claim. But I feel like this book potentially is one where I was like, I would accept that. I will accept that in this case. So the book starts out, and I mean, I want to say I maybe read 5 or 10% of it. With, I think her name's Miranda. Hold on, let me. Okay, so in the book, it starts off with Miranda Rohan. She's like 21 or 22, and she's just gonna like meet this like hot guy at like the Vauxhall Gardens. Is that what it's called? And she knows she really shouldn't be doing it, but she also is pretty confident. She comes from a family that really like loves her and supports her, and she doesn't really think she will ever be in danger. And this man essentially takes her on the road, like kind of is gonna like, you know, we're gonna go to Scotland and you're gonna marry me because I want your money. And you guys listen, I'm like content warning on the following conversation. This is page 3. She's like, well, you know, she's thinking like, she's so mad at herself, right? But we're gonna stop at like a coaching inn and then I'll like escape there. Well, they don't. They stop at a cottage, and he rapes her. And and on page, Miranda's like, it wasn't rape. She says this was like that sentence, because once she saw what was happening, she figured she might as well try. Right? Like, why, like, kind of, but like, clearly it is rape. Like, we as readers understand what she, like, right? And he has her for a couple of days until she, like, essentially hits him over the head and takes his horse and runs off, and then runs into her family, who are, like, essentially storming after them to try and save her. And she is ruined. And then we find out that, like, the man who becomes the hero, quote unquote, put this guy up to it because he has a vendetta against the family. And I was I'm not interested in this story anymore, right? It's not
I mean, but Anne Stewart, everybody, I mean, like, talk about somebody who like consistently takes the finger, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
And in this case, this is a tough nut to swallow.
Yeah. And you know what else I was really fascinated by is I was sort of like, oh, this probably was from like 1987. It was 2010.
No.
And I was like,
wait, really?
That's what Goodreads says. And I do feel like Goodreads is
That's not a new edition?
Well, usually Goodreads will have the original one, but please check Breathless by Anne Stewart. Check Fiction DB, I guess.
I'm going there right now. Everybody, if you have questions about genre fiction,
and about the real publication date of something.
I give money to Fiction DB annually because I use it so much.
Yeah. I was kind of like, it can't possibly be 2010, but you know what? Who the fuck knows? Maybe it was. Sarah's looking it up, everybody. But
it was.
But you all, I had to stop reading it. I was like, you know what? I am not.
That's rough.
This, right? Like, the hero essentially, like, blackmailed the first guy into ruining her to get back at the family.
Skip ahead to find out what happens?
No, I just wasn't interested. I really wasn't.
No. The hero's name is Lucian.
Yeah.
Listen.
Sure. Should have known. Here's the part that was
Lucians
interesting.
are bad seeds.
The reason I got maybe as far as I did is she finds freedom in Ruination.
Yeah.
Right? She's kind of like...
But at the same time, the hero basically hired a man to rape her.
Correct.
I mean, I'm sure here's the truth. It's going to come out that he never expected. Like, that was not the part of the plan.
Oh, no, it was, Sarah. Oh, no.
It was?
I quit when he is on page with the guy and he's like, well, did you ruin her at least? And I was like, oh.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no. Like, and that's why I said, I was like, this is the first time I've been like,
wait,
I would call that a dark romance.
Because it's interesting here. And listen, this is where you get into your like little mind fuck of being a romance reader, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I agree with you. This is a non-starter for me.
Yeah.
However, in the event that he had not hired another man to do this, and he had done this himself.
Yeah, sure, then I would have read it. I'm sorry.
Listen, we contain multitudes here at Fated Mates. I mean...
Well, because in those circumstances, he would have been like,
but it's
I'm
interesting
wrong, right?
Because it wouldn't have been written the same way.
Right, of course.
He would have been like, you must orgasm.
Yeah, right, of course.
Like, and somehow we would have been like, this is fine.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, right?
Right, like kind of where those lines are.
How you have to thread the needle in like a in a very particular kind of way for romance. And I should say also, like, that plot that I just described is certainly a plot that we have seen many, many times over the years, that you see fewer, you don't see it as often anymore. I mean, like, you mentioned Felicity.
Yeah.
In Wicked and the Wallflower, the hero of that book, Devil.
I love him. Devil, I love you.
Name is Destiny. Is basically like, I'm going to ruin Felicity Faircloth.
Yes.
And then he's like the softest, sweetest baby about it. Like,
Yeah.
You just can't.
Sure.
It feels like you can't do it the same way.
Yeah. I DNF'd. I do not recommend it, right? Like, I just was like, oh no, it's too much for me.
Yeah, but
right?
So anyway, dark romance lovers, there you go. Head over to Anne Stewart's Breathless. You might have a great time.
Can I maybe take the edge off with one of my favorite Ruination stories and let me go the opposite way? Just a little snippet of my favorite Marrying Winterbourne, which is, and we've talked about this book,
we did a deep dive on Marrying Winterbourne.
But the thing that's really funny is he basically talks her into let's have sex first, because then we will have to marry. Like, if you want to marry me and I want to marry you, this is the way to get it done.
Sneaky motherfucker.
But the greatest scene in this book is she's downstairs with Kathleen kind of being like, well, that's what they're talking about upstairs. And Kathleen's like, wait, what? He's going to tell Devin what? Right. And then she's like, we have to stop him. And she's like, and Helen's like, I'm sure that he already knows. And Kathleen's like, no, we would hear. And then all of a sudden you're like banging and yelling from upstairs. And it is, I am sorry, the greatest scene in romance. It's so fucking funny.
Wait, pause, because now we have a whole segment of romance that we have to talk about, which is she is ruined by him and the family discovers it, because this is usually just like chef's kiss. And I will say, I don't like to talk about my books, but I do feel that part of the whole reason why no one will fucking stop asking me for Benedict's book is because of the scene where Ralston, in 9 Rules to Break, when romancing a rake, when Ralston, the hero, has fully ruined the heroine, and she won't marry him because love. What a dummy. And then he goes to her brother and it's like, I ruined your sister.
Yeah.
And Benedict calmly removes his glasses and is like, you understand now that I'm going to have to hit you.
It's so great. It really is.
And then he does, and then it's fine.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Piper Rain, author of The One I Didn't See Coming.
So, Briar has a problem, Jen. Chicago, the city of, has chewed her up and spit her out.
I just don't believe that, but okay.
It's not entirely Chicago's fault. It's mainly the fault of this guy she trusted and who ended up being like an absolute terrible liar and a bad person. And so now she has no choice but to beat the hell out of Chicago and head back to her hometown in intellectual disgrace, like her own mental disgrace.
Sure.
At home in her hometown is her older sister, who is a consummate fixer and has solved the problem. She has got Briar a job as a yoga instructor on her fiance's family ranch. Problem is, this doesn't solve anything. In fact, it makes everything much more complicated because the family ranch, because her older sister's fiance is actually brother to Emmett Naughton, who is Briar's high school crush, and this is crush with a capital C. She wrote his name in her notebooks. She was obsessed with him, and he fully did not know she existed. Here's the problem. She now realizes that there is no way she's going back to this high school crush situation. She is a grown woman with a job. And he suddenly is very much realizing that she exists. So a little bit of tension there and a little bit of confusion on Briar's part is, I think, going to lead to some pretty great tension and other things between Briar and Emmett.
I hope so.
And we know that because it's Piper Rain and they know the job.
All right. So if you are interested in checking out The One I Didn't See Coming, it is available in print, audiobook, and with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. If you click on the chapter title right now, you can be taken to buy the book. And as a special treat for Fated Mates listeners, at the end of this episode, there's an excerpt from the audiobook that has duet narration, which is really fun to listen to. So we want to say thank you to Piper Rain for sponsoring this week's episode.
I have a book. I said I was going to talk about a book that I'm pretty sure we talked about this book. So we've talked about Gentle Rogue because we did a deep dive of Gentle Rogue in season 2. Gentle Rogue is a book that blooded Jen and me. There are some big things that are wrong with this book. Like in hindsight, like we realized that if you're a shipping magnet moving from America to England in the Regency, you're definitely moving humans. Like there are some problems with what's going on here in this book. Though, like, that is not articulated on the page in any way. And so it took us until we were, 40.
Grown-ups. I was like, oh, no.
Oh, no. Anyway, but in the second or third book in the Anderson Mallory saga is The Magic of You. Now, The Magic of You has a different situation, which is the age gap in this book is honestly unreal. But if you love a daddy... Like,
there you go.
It's like the primordial daddy is Warren Anderson. And so the premise of this book, and I think the way that Joanna Lindsey threads the needle on the age gap here is that Amy Mallory, who is very young in this book, like 19 or 20 in this book, sees Warren Anderson at the wedding of one of the prior of it could even be the wedding of the couple in Gentle Rogue, and is like, I want.
Yeah.
And she's just like, that's him. I want that man. And she just pursues him relentlessly. And he's like, no, you are way too young for me. Absolutely not. I fucking loathe your uncles. We are mortal enemies. They ruined my sister and now married her. Like, one of them married her. It's unacceptable. Like, this will never happen. And she just pursues him and pursues him and pursues him and pursues him. And then they end up fucking and they are sleeping naked.
Oh, no.
In bed. And enter the Mallory brothers.
God, listen, you guys, it's so wrong that I'm so entertained by this.
It's such a fucking delight. And the reality is, of course, like Warren, of course, was going to marry her. Like, it's all sort of like, they're like, you're going to marry her. And like, yes, obviously. I mean, they're actually not like, you're going to marry her. They're like, we're going to kill you, which is like another layer of this. Like, the masculinity of like, how dare you ruin this person? Like, how dare you? I need to take revenge on you. Like,
right.
There's a lot of gender stuff going on. But listen, these early Joanna Lindsey books come with all of the caveats of like, they were written in the 80s. And like, you just have to accept that like the text is going to be, But if you do love kind of like beast daddy.
Yeah.
The Magic of You is for you.
It's going to work. Okay.
But I do love those moments where the family stumbles upon it. And it's always brothers who just like just lose their fucking minds.
Okay. I have a similar one, but I loved it. It's A Little Bit Wild by Victoria Dahl.
Oh, this is interesting. I was saving this one for the next one.
Well, interesting, because what happens is so Marissa is ruined because she is like essentially same thing, like kind of bored. She's got this suitor who like wants to marry her and she's turned him down a couple of times, but he has lovely long legs and looks great in breeches. And
so why the fuck not?
Right. And so
listen, if she were a man, she'd just do it.
Correct. And so they do it. And it is like the book opens with them fucking and her being like, this is terrible. Like, why am I doing this?
What is
when
happening?
Her brother bursts in and like, she's basically in the process of being like, get off of me. And this guy is like, now we'll marry. And she's like, no, we won't. Like this, no, we won't.
Pardon me.
Excuse me. And her brother comes in and she's like, oh my God, this is all awful. And the thing though is like this guy, the guy, whoever he is such a jerk that even the brother's like, get the fuck out of here. Now then, meanwhile, here's my other favorite part. She's like, don't tell anybody. And then like the other brother appears. Right. And that one's the real hothead. And so
the best. These are the best moments.
Yeah. And so, and what they basically agree, you know, she's a little bit older, right? She's like been out for a few seasons or whatever, is that she will. So, okay, conveniently, older brother, hothead brother Aiden, his friend Jude is with them. And Jude is the natural son of a duke, which means the bastard son of a duke. But the duke recognizes him, right? Like sort of says, this is my son. And he like was raised in the household after some point. His mother was a courtesan, a French courtesan. And so Jude has a very matter of fact, like sort of like, yeah, people have sex. That's fine. Not a big deal. And he's met Marissa a couple times and has always kind of been like, I like this one. She's a wild one. I like the wild ones. But he's like a big brute of a man, you know, he doesn't have beautiful slim legs in his breeches. He has, you know, thick, large tree trunk legs in his breeches.
I love
other
it.
things
Thank
in
you
his
very
breeches.
much.
Yeah. And
thank you for your patronage.
And so, you know,
Victoria Doll.
So the brothers are like, well, who's going to marry her? Right? Like who, you know, if you don't want to marry him, but what if you're pregnant? And the part that's really fascinating that I think this book does so well, I mean, this book is terrific, is she is like, oh, is that how that happens? I thought maybe it couldn't happen the first time, right? Like, so she's knows enough, but again, like you see like the pockets of ignorance because these young women were taught nothing about their own bodies. And so she essentially kind of talks her brother into like, okay, Jude is like, I'll marry her. And everyone like, you know, like every head turns around like, why would you do that? And he's like, well, don't worry about it. I said I would. That's fine. And then what he tells her is, I've always wanted like a wildcat of a wife, and I think you're it. And she's like offended, but like he's like knows that he's getting her. And then they go riding, and she's like, actually, his legs are terrific. Look at the way he controls that horse. And
tremendous work, everybody.
And you know what?
I mean, Victoria Doll, we love her.
It is,
and she
so
wrote a couple of historicals.
great.
And they're all terrific.
Yeah. I think the thing, though, that I one of the things I did realize in reading this one versus like kind of the other one, I do really like when they're ruined and find freedom in it, or just like sort of are like, this was my decision. And I know it was maybe dumb and foolish and I'm going to be paying some sort of price, as opposed to, as much as I like Tom Severin, like swooping in to save Cassandra. He, you know, her sort of like, I didn't do anything wrong. And like, look what has been done to me. And, you know, it's just, and then like being like frozen by that feels real. But I think I'm at an age now where I'm like, well, if this is going to be the topic, I want these women to just be so strong. And Marissa is really strong. And, you know, Jude has her figured out. It's like, she wants to be wild, and I want that in a wife. I don't want like a good society kind of quiet girl mistress, you know, who's just not mistress, but like, you know, who'll do whatever I say. I'm looking for someone who will be my match. And Marissa never thought that was a possibility. She thought, I have to be wild before marriage because then I will be locked into being a good girl. And so what we see is like in the development of their romance, right, is just this sense that she realizes it doesn't have to be that way. Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's really terrific. And I think even the thing that the brother thing, like they both are just kind of like, we just don't want you to be miserable. We don't want you to be isolated or ostracized. Like it sucks, but this is the way it is. And we're here to be on your side. Right. So anyway, that one was a little bit wild.
I love what you said about like you want a heroine who is really strong in the face of it. And I think you don't always find that. And that's a reasonable thing. Like I think if you were ruined in real life, like there's a lot there's a lot to be, it is difficult necessarily to demand that from every woman, but I feel the same way. Like I want, for the same reason we both love Heroine Against the Wall. Like you want somebody who, once they're against the wall, it comes out swinging. I sort of mentioned this vaguely at the beginning, but I want to talk a little more about Joanna Shupe's The Harlot Countess, which is, so before Joanna wrote Gilded Age books, she wrote Regencies, maybe Victorians. I don't actually remember when this was set, but The Harlot Countess is one of her early books. And the structure here is Maggie, who is the heroine, is ruined by her best friend's fiance assaults her in and it's terrible, and everyone thinks that it's her fault.
Yeah.
Including like her best friend, everybody. Like she loses everybody.
Everything, yeah.
And it's, this is such a classic story. Like it's really incredibly heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And at the time, Maggie was engaged, or at least like soon to be engaged, like fully being courted by Simon, who is the hero of this book, who, when this all goes down, believes the hype, like believes the gossip. And is like, okay, that's it. Like we're
done. Yeah.
We're done. And so he is Simon Winchester, and Maggie, who is half Irish, becomes like a pariah in society. And the whole world starts to call her the Irish harlot. And she's just sort of like, and then the gossip about her gets like bigger and bolder. And then it's like, she basically gives it to everybody anytime they want. She's like, like the biggest slut in all of England. And of course, like, this is not true. Maggie has like really pulled in and like keeps to herself. And she has decided to do battle with these people on a public scale, but anonymously, by becoming a political cartoonist.
Yeah.
And so she routinely, Simon is sort of like known. It's known that when he was younger, he really liked his drink. And so she creates this character in political cartoons called called Lord Winechester. And he's like always just like blackout drunk in all of her cartoons. And it enrages him because she's doing this under a pseudonym and he doesn't know who it is. And so like the book kind of begins with Simon going to our print shop and that notoriously prints all of these cartoons. And he's like, I will pay you whatever it takes to find out who this person is. And he offers them like a fortune, 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds. And they're like, no, our loyalty is to the artist. Like, and so he's just enraged by this. And it's really very fun to watch because he has to like grovel, right? Like he has to crawl back to her. They finally see each other. It's 10 years later. They haven't spoken in all that time. She's like full of anger and sadness, and he is having to really reckon with what he did, how he was complicit in her ruination. But she is like, one of the things Joanna does really well is like show you a heroine who has gone through it and survived. And like all of Joanna's heroines are survivors. And there's this kind of great moment where of course, like the pacing of Joanna's books are always like just rat-a-tat-tat, right? Like he leaves the print shop and she's coming in and to deliver her newest, creation. And while she's kind of there in that shop, she overhears like a collection of young women on the street who like should have been her friends. And they're like, that's the Irish harlot. And you can like feel the heat of embarrassment and like frustration and indignation and the desire for her to just like scream that that it isn't true, that, you know, nothing that she's not responsible for it. Like there's this really push-pull, and you can see in this book also the bones of Joanna's future work, like where when Joanna gets to the Gilded Age and she's starting to write, she's like more comfortable in the way she is writing in the later books and in the stories she wants to tell. You can see in the Harlot Countess this kind of very real the core story that is going to become like essential to these much later books, which is really about like what the world does to women. Anyway, that's the Harlot Countess. It's great. Simon has to like really reckon with what he's done. And there's kind of a great moment where he says to her, like, you should have told me. I would have believed you.
Yeah.
And she's like,
would you have?
But really, would you?
Yeah, like I think that's the other thing. It's like, yeah, it's about sex, but it's also about loyalty or trust or like whatever that is, right?
Believe like, women.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's why I keep going back to like the Tom Severin of it all, right? Like he never believes it for a second. And that makes him feel incredibly heroic, right? Like, and he instantaneously realizes that she's been victimized.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by 1001 Dark Nights, publishers of Pride and Passion, an LGBTQIA+ love collection.
So I love these anthologies from 1001 Dark Nights, and this one is all about featuring love and celebrating it in all its vibrant forms. It features queer romances, polyamorous romances, and these books are like bold and tender, from first loves to maybe lifelong commitments. These are stories that just explore the full spectrum of passion, pride, and the beauty of being true to oneself. There are, as always in these collections, 4 novellas. So we've got one of the Ink series by Carrie Ann Ryan. Those are always so great. The Flame by Christopher Rice. Hello. We love Christopher Rice. Jay Kenner's Tangled with You, and then Strung Up by Lorelei James. So this is a chance for you to like visit with authors you know and love and maybe experience somebody new, all in this great celebration of queer love and joy.
So if you are looking for a terrific queer romance, this anthology is for you. You can find it right now in print, ebook, or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks as always to 1001 Dark Nights for sponsoring this week's episode.
What other Kleypas books were on your list? Because I found myself thinking, and it's been a long time since I've read it, about Lawless Lily, which is Then Came You, which is like the book before Dreaming of You. And I think like I can't even really like sort of speak to like exactly how she was like ruined, but she really delights in shocking, like sort of essentially like one of the things I'm interested in is like, after you've been ruined, how do you in what way do you exist in society, right? And I think this is just like what made me think of it, like, right, like there's the surreptitious way you're gonna like sort of poke at everybody becoming this cartoonist, but in Lawless Lily case, like there's also this like a brazenness to it, right? Like a way that she just, nobody can tell her what to do, or she's Lawless Lily. It's right there in the name. But then it's Alex, essentially, right, is supposed to marry her sister, and she's like, I'm gonna stop that from happening, and they end up together, and it's great. And it's funny because like we talk about Dreaming of You so often, but I don't know that we've ever talked about Then Came You.
No.
Right?
No. And again, the magic, the secondary love story that I love so much. She was in love, and like it didn't happen. I think he died, and like they had like they were fully compromised, and he died, and so she like doesn't, that God, it's so magical. It's like Cinderella, that book,
Yeah.
that secondary love story where like there's a ball going on inside the house and comes upon her in the gardens and she's dancing alone in the gardens.
Yeah.
And she's dancing alone in the gardens for two reasons. One, she's ruined. And so like there's no expectation that she'll ever marry. And like she doesn't want to be judged or seen or stared at or, you know, whatever in the ballroom. And two, because she had experienced this like great love. And he basically, that's just a great secondary love story. And then Tempt Me at Twilight is Harry and Poppy, and Harry Rutledge, who is God, like the most Claypassian hero there is. Like if we did that New Year's Eve episode, or no, was it New Year's Eve that we did with Sanj?
No,
No, it was just like we did a Kleypas episode with Sanjana, and we like discussed like all of the Kleypas heroes. But what we did not discuss was like list them in order of the most Claypassian. And like
Right.
I think Harry Rutledge probably is like, I mean, one of the classics because he's like a hotel owner and an inventor and he creates some like automatons. Like,
Yeah.
he's just like a magical man. Anyway, and he's like classic Kleypas where like they're flirty and like he's just like, he says all sorts of things that get Poppy like so flustered. And then like they're compromised. Oops. And he's like, fine, then you marry me. And it turns out like that was the intention the whole time. I mean,
Right.
classic, right? Like Winterborny, except like sneaky.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but there it is. And so, I mean, but I think that you could probably make the argument that, well, I mean, Evie and Sebastian.
Sure. I mean, I do. It's funny because I have the same thing. And, you know, it's just like some people I think are probably like more interested in this than others, right? In some kind of way. But I also feel like, you know, who's someone that doesn't maybe do it that often, but like I'm interested in it. And so I want to talk about Wild Rain by Beverly Jenkins, which is, I think, one of my favorite of her books, probably. I mean, I love them all. It's just like for whatever, like, right. But the thing about Spring is her male guardian, I don't think it was her father. I think it's like an uncle, essentially is like, you're going to have to marry, you know, this disgusting person I want you to marry. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I'm not going to do that. And she takes herself off to the local, like she's an amazing horsewoman. And she takes herself off to like the biggest ranch in like the Wyoming territory near her and says like, I want to work on the ranch. And it is made very clear to her that that can happen, but she is going to essentially have to like service the owner. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she agrees because she is like, I want to be in charge of my own destiny more than I want to be told what to do. And she ends up like, you know, like, and then that happened far in the past, right? And now she's essentially escaped that situation. She lives on her own. You know, she sleeps with a gun in her bed.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is the man in her bed, and is very much like, this is going to be the life I live. And I'm fine with it because it's the life I made for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But the town, of course, sees her as like a pariah, right? Like, how dare, right? And I think one of the things that is really plain in this book is that like Ruination is not just about sex, but like about like, how dare a woman step outside of the bounds of society in a way we don't, right? We didn't control. And therefore, like, we're going to punish her. And the hero then is a journalist named Garrett, who has come to write about her brother, but then essentially like falls in love with Spring. And because he's an outsider, he is like, I don't like, what's going on here? Right. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing is like, he's like just the man she needs, right? Yeah. Like she doesn't need a man who's going to like be like, I'm going to be strong for you. She's like, I'm not interested in that. She just wants a man who will understand her. And as a journalist, right, his innate curiosity, right? His sense of like who is this person in front of me and like what makes them tick makes him the perfect partner, right? They're the perfect partner. So I really, I really love this book because I really love Spring, right? I mean, she's just such a great character, and I think it again speaks to that whole like here's someone whose back was against the wall and she made a decision not a lot of people would, and now we're seeing like the half-life of that, right? It's not like in the moment, it's like here's how this made me, here's the crucible that made me. It's terrific. So that's Wild Rain by Beverly Jenkins.
So I want to talk about Suzanne Enoch, who I'm not sure if we've ever talked about on the podcast. But I want to talk about The Rake, which I think most people believe that this is Suzanne's greatest work. Like, sometimes there's just
a book that hits.
A book that hits and a book that you just think of every time you think of that writer. And for me, I found The Rake. I mean, I must have found The Rake right when I was sort of really just glomming historicals like through, I don't know when it came out, but I feel like I found it like at the same time I found Lisa. Like it just was the right time. And then I read like a ton of Enoch. And so the premise of The Rake is another Georgiana. And she is, so the series though, and I don't know if this is her first series. It could be her first series. I don't know. But the series is about 3 women who make a commitment. The 3 of them have all been ruined by like rakish, like bad, like, scandalous men and rendered kind of unmarriageable. And they decide to get together and they form a club and they decide they're going to ruin these men back. And so I think part of the charm of this book and part of the charm of this like genre of ruination books or compromised books is, like you said before, you articulated it as like she is freed by ruination.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of these books, the appeal to me as a reader was they are freed to do to these men what has been done to them. Like to like take revenge in a certain way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that this works is there's Georgiana and Tristan. And they had like, I like the twist on this too, because the premise of this is that like years ago, like, I mean, maybe a decade ago, Tristan ruined Georgiana by like trying to seduce her into falling for him as a wager. Like there had been like I bet you I can get her
I can do this. Yeah.
And, everybody like, and then when people found out, like it was just awful. It was awful. And then the one sort of thread of this that like might not hit quite the same now in 2025 is like, it does come out that like Tristan's always had it. Like since then, yes, he did it for the wager, but like he's always had a little bit of a thing for her. And what's interesting about the structure of this book, and I'm going to say like, I didn't reread it for this episode. So, vibes, I guess. But the structure of this book, as I recall it, is, and I've read it a couple times, is that Tristan they've sort of been like dancing around each other for this whole time. Mm-hmm. And while this as a plot device, the kind of I'm going to seduce you as a bet on a bet is a common plot device in romance, right? The she's all that of it all. There is, or the, 10 things I hate about you of it all, right? There is this, in this book, that happens. That is the story that leads us to this moment, right? Yeah. So like we've already seen him get caught in the wager. We've already seen the whole thing sort of fall apart. It's already happened at the beginning of this book. And so now it's the matter of like him having to apologize to her, right? And as we all know, I love a hero who has to apologize. The longer and more painful, the better. So,
I mean, same.
But these two really, like, it's just obvious from from the jump, like from the moment she's like, fuck this man, I'm going to ruin him back. Like, I'm going to destroy him. That like, this is just a terrible plan, right? Because we're going to throw these two together. They've been dancing each around. The part of the reason why it was so easy at the beginning for him to ruin her was like, they are into each other.
Yeah, right.
But there is this great thing that runs through this. And we've talked over time about how good Lisa is at talismans, like these like objects that continually come back over the course of a book. And I had forgotten, until I really started thinking about this book this morning, there is a great moment in the Rake, and it's over the course of the whole book. She breaks, like every time she's angry with him, and listen, some people are not going to like this, but I really loved it. Every time she's angry with him, she hits him with her fan. She'll like close her fan and smack him on the wrist, on the like hand.
Yeah.
And she breaks the fans. And every time he buys her a new one.
Okay, that's amazing. That is actually kind of amazing.
Isn't that great? And he buys her a new one, and he like, but even better, Jen, I'm spoiling this because it's so good. I'm sorry. The book is 100 years old, everybody. Like, there are no spoilers. But if you are concerned, skip forward 30 seconds. But every time this happens, he buys her a new one. And then later in the book, it becomes revealed that she never breaks those fans that he buys her over.
Oh.
Like she saves them all.
I love it.
And so like, it's just a perfect, simple, like just an elegant way of like showing how much these two want each other.
Yeah.
And how there's no way these two aren't perfect for each other. And it's like, it's great. It's called The Rake. If you are a historical fan and you've never read this one, you're going to love it. Like, Jen, you should read it. You're going to love it. It's like, it's like a real right down the middle classic. Also, what I would say is like, this is not a rough hero. Like, this is not a bad guy. He's just he was a rake, and now he's not.
And now he's not.
He's ready for love.
He's a fan buying guy.
He's got just like boxes of fans on order. God, by the way, I love that. Like, I love that shit in historicals. When,
God, me too. Oh,
like,
yeah.
Where do you even get all those fans? Who even knows? Like, what I actually want is the outtake scene. I want Suzanne Enoch to like write the scene where he goes into the fan store for the 43rd time.
Yeah, me too. That's actually great. I do.
And the haberdasher or whoever it is, like pulls out
the tray of fans. Maybe you should write "Marry Me" in invisible ink on it. Amazing.
We could do a whole episode on fans and historicals too. Honestly. Actually, you know what? That would be a great collection. Everybody, if you haven't heard about this, we should talk about Fated Maid's collection department.
Lord of Scoundrels.
Lord of Scoundrels is the classic fan,
classic
right?
fan. Listen, look at us doing it in real time.
Like, so, okay, if you go to fatedmaids.net/collections, or if you go to fatedmaids.net and just like click, I don't know if that's the URL, everybody. I make them up and then Eric has to make them. Like, it's a whole chaotic thing that happens here. But if you go to fatedmaids.net, right there on the main page, there's a button you can click. It says collections. And then you can head over to Human Made. I like that part. Human Made collections, like based on of romance novels based on super microtropes. So like Bea in her books did mustaches. Alice Murray did plus size characters in historicals. Like there are, I think there might be one already about heroes who blush. Like it's great. It's a really fun
one on
time.
secret tattoos. We're going to do the fan one. We will.
Yeah. And then, so we could do one on fans. Jen and I have we keep going like, oh, we're going to do one.
But no, this will be the one.
We've never thought of a microtrope ever in our life.
I'm sorry, I don't read.
But also, to be fair, every time I think of one to do, I'm like, oh, that would be a good episode.
Right, exactly. We have a different problem.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Mara Moody, author of The Reunion Recipe.
So Marlo Sage and Jude Beckett were former best friends and teen pop stars together. And at the height, I know, I love this setup. At the height of their like sort of prime, they broke up and their fans were shocked. But like these two just had different views of what they want their future to be like. So Marlo really hungered for fortune and fame and, you know, pursued life as a music star, while Jude just like kind of went back home to his hometown, and he had a broken heart, but his dream was to become a pastry chef. So now it's a decade later, and her pop career maybe is waning, while his celebrity chef vibe is only on the come up. They run into each other at a dive karaoke bar where they find out that maybe their feelings are way more invested than they would have thought after all of this time apart. So Marlo agrees that she's sort of out of the public eye after a couple of tabloid stumbles, but being with Jude again is really appealing. And so now she's trying to prove to everyone, including herself, that revisiting past hurts won't be a recipe for disaster. It'll be a recipe for love.
Well, as you all know, I love a chef and I love a pop star, so this is very much for me, this book. And if you too would like this second chance small town celebrity homecoming romance, then you can find this book right now in print or ebook. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the reunion recipe. Thanks so much to Mara Moody for sponsoring this week's episode. I want to talk about Kate Noble's Compromise because I don't think I've ever talked about Kate Noble before, and I think she's terrific. Actually, I think we probably have, because I do think she's terrific. Compromise, though, the structure Compromise is really interesting because the heroine is not the one who is ruined in this book, but the ruination does impact the romance in a very specific way, which is, so Evangeline is the heroine. She's a sister named Gail. Gail. I know, now that I just said that out loud, it didn't matter at all to me. And now that I've said that out loud, I'm like, Gail, what an interesting name.
Sure.
Okay, so there is, and the plot of this book is Gail and Evangeline, their stepmother is like, so Evangeline's super bookish and Gail's not. And they are, their stepmother is basically like, Evangeline, you will never marry. Like, no one is ever going to pay any attention to you unless we put you both out into society together, because Gail will get some attention and then you'll get like the leavings.
Sure, you'll get a rising tide lifts all boats, Sarah.
So off they go to the ball. And at this ball, Max, our hero, is like stumbles upon a Gail drunk on ratafia out on the balcony.
Is that how you say that word? Ratafia?
I don't know, maybe. I've never heard it said.
Well, me neither. Okay.
Ask
fine.
Mary Jane Wells.
True.
I mean, it could be, what else? I don't know what it would be.
I don't know, Sarah.
Ratafia.
I don't even know what
us.
it fucking is. So it's fine. Some kind of beverage.
It's like an alcoholic punch. Is what I know.
Okay.
That I do know, but I don't know how you say it. Anyway, let's say ratafia for the purposes of this. I'm an expert. So, drunk on whatever it is, out on the balcony, Gail's super drunk. And Max is like, boy, you are super drunk. And then they like have this conversation and Gail pukes all over his shoes.
Oh, no.
And boom, compromised. I mean, this is the other thing that I will say in all these books. Compromise is like he breathed on her. Like,
oh yeah,
you know, my that Judith McNaught short story that I talk about every Christmas, where like she's looking to be compromised, and she's like, I just wanted to dance 3 dances with him. Like,
sure,
3
and
dances,
I didn't know.
Boom, compromised. You're basically pregnant. So anyway, so Gail pukes all over his shoes. It's like a situation, and boom, Gail and Max are engaged. Now, Evangeline is our heroine, you will remember. And so the situation is that there's this great meet cute between Evangeline and Max, which involves horses. And I should have thought about it for our horse episode.
I mean, so many
because
horses. Every time I read a historical now, I'm like,
there's another fucking
there's
horse,
another
right?
horse.
So, but Max is riding in like Hyde Park or something, and his like horse, I don't know if it's a new horse or like what the hell is wrong with this horse or him, but like he can't get this horse to like be in control. So he's like riding and the horse is a little bit out of his control. And then Evangeline is also riding and she's like crossing over the path that he's riding on. And he's like, oh shit, my horse is going to collide with her horse. And so he shouts, not get out of the way, lady, but he shouts, horse, he's like, why doesn't this fucking horse stop? I don't know what exactly he shouts, but he basically yells at the horse. And then she looks up and she's like, oh shit, this horse is like barreling down on me. And this like man the size of a house is also barreling down on me. And so she sort of turns to avoid him and reaches out and grabs the reins of his horse. Because she's like, would you please stop your horse? And he's like, can't you see I'm trying? Like an inept man. I love it.
Fine.
And she reaches out and grabs the reins of his horse and stops his horse and promptly sends the two of them sailing over the horses' heads and into the Serpentine. So they don't like each other much. And now Max is engaged. Now Max is like being forced to marry her sister, Gail. And so Evangeline becomes their like kind of like chaperone, like before they get married, because God forbid they should touch again before they get married. So she's like forced to like wander around with them and be their third.
Yeah.
And
not
she
that
and
kind
Max,
of third.
Not that kind of third. And then she and Max like fall in love over the course of this book. And like the complication of this is Gail is ruined.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and Max and Evangeline are falling in love, but he's supposed to marry Gail to protect Gail's honor.
Yeah.
And so and the other thing about this is Kate Noble started writing right around when I started writing. And she doesn't write historicals anymore, I don't think, but she wrote, I don't know, 6 or 8 of them. And all of them have these really great structures. Like Gail has a point of view in this book.
Oh, good. That's interesting.
And like,
yeah.
So it's an interesting, like, there's always a kind of sense in Kate's books that like something more is going on.
Yeah.
You know, she's the one she had this great duology where like a duke and his servant switch places. He might not have been a duke, but like somebody titled and a servant switch places. And then like they each fall in love with the wrong person.
Yeah.
And then they have to like switch back, but it's the actual switching back that is the story. Sure. Like it's great. Anyway, Kate Noble's great. She's also a television writer. So like you can sort of see the like structurally that she's always playing with the way
doing
that
something
the books work.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Fun fact for those of you who care about these things, this Compromise book is Kate's debut and it was released in trade paperback first.
Oh.
In like 2010.
That is interesting.
So it was like a big thing when it happened.
I have a couple contemporaries because like I said, I was really interested in thinking about like what would Ruination look like in a contemporary in like in a similar footprint, right? And I think what I kind of landed on was it's not about virginity that much, right? Like, because I mean, I think the thing we haven't said the V word, but like, right, like the reason all these women have been ruined is because they are no longer pure, right? Like somebody wasn't minding the store and now, right, they can't enter society anymore. And I'm not really interested necessarily in that, like, especially in a modern context. So I did find myself thinking though, like, okay, but if what the outcome of it is that you're isolated and that you're on your own and that like you're sort of cut off from people, like what would be the equivalent? And I found myself thinking about a book by Kristen Ashley called Ride Steady. And the reason I like it is because it really is like the heroine against the wall. Her name's Carissa. She married young and like married this guy she thought was, you know, like kind of like it was like a real like she was not like poor, but he was like the kind of rich, she married Steph essentially from what was that movie with James Spader? That Molly Ringwald in Pretty in Pink, right? She she married the like popular rich guy everyone loved, and she was like, I'm gonna have this perfect life. Look, I married the most wonderful guy, right? And now it's a few years later. She's like maybe 25 or 26, right? She's like young. She has a baby who's 2 years old, and she has been cast out by her husband. He divorced her. He threw her out of the house. He is like very he essentially like gamed the system so he doesn't have to pay her any alimony or very little child support. So even though he is like rich and like totally has so much money, she has nothing. She's working at a grocery store, right, as a cashier. She, that's like a job that is actually, she loves her job because she can like kind of like work hours where she can like the baby can go somewhere during the day, and right, like so it like really works for her. She's really happy at this job, but like she's barely making ends meet. And the book opens with her essentially on the side of the road with her car broken down, and it's just her and the baby. And she's like, it's Denver and like it's rush hour and people are just going by, and she's just standing there like, I have nothing. Right. And the thing about this, the reason it like kind of strikes the ruination chord in me is it's not that she has nothing. It's that she has been made to have nothing. Yeah. Right. And it's clear pretty quick that the gambit is that the husband has a new girlfriend, and what he wants to do is essentially force her to give up the baby. He wants essentially to like make a new family, and he's going to take the baby, and Carissa's just going to be out in the cold. And what happens is that Carson, who is like essentially drives up on his motorcycle, he's the only person to stop, and he helps her like put on her spare tire, and realizes, and he like works at like the motorcycle club owns like a car repair shop or whatever, like one that does like really fancy cars, like right, like. And he's like, bring it by and we'll get you tires. And she's kind of like, okay. And she like kind of drives up, and she's like, he sent me and said you could maybe help me with tires. But like, she's kind of like, can we talk about like the price before you do it? And he's like, you're Joker's girl. Don't worry. We got you. And she's like, wait, what is happening? And then she has like a community of people who essentially like rally around her and help her like fight off this really existential threat to like her own child. Yep. And I found it to be like really, I think like one of the things I really think about is how many women, we've talked about this before, in modern society exist in marriages where they have no financial control.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that and then are like cast out. And, sometimes that happens to the wife when they're 45, but in this case, it happened when she was 25. And I really found myself thinking like, that's what modern day ruination is, because it is at the hands of the patriarchy and of this man and his family and his ties to like the legal community, right? Like she can't even find a lawyer who will help her because they're of the family it would be going up against. Sure. And so I found myself thinking like, that's what modern day ruination looks like, right? Like you were married, you had but then but if you have no financial security and you are cast out from that, then what? And I thought that it was a really, so anyway, I really like this book. It's called Ride Steady.
Perfect. When you said contemporaries, like what does ruination look like in contemporaries? I immediately thought about Angelina M. Lopez's After Hours on Milagro Street, because that's a good example of like, and I think that and then I was like, oh, wait, well, that's sort of a like whole genre of small town, right? Where somebody returns home to their small town in ruin. Like they have failed abysmally out in the world and now are returned home because of that failure. And so interestingly, I think this is not to suggest that I think ruination, like sexual ruination or like ruination for being like like slut shaming continues to exist, everybody in the world,
course.
and will continue to ruin, like, quote, I'm using air quotes, like big ruin,
Yeah.
you know, women especially. But it feels like in contemporary romance, there is this other layer of what would send somebody into ruin. And I think what's interesting about it is when they come home, they have to reckon with that failure, but that failure is often like mental for them. Like it's internal. Like I have failed and therefore I am ruined.
Yeah.
Rather than a kind of outward, like a perception from the outside.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, it totally does. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I don't even necessarily have like other contemporary books I want to talk about. Although I did find myself thinking, I bet any money, if I had like sort of thought of it before 5 minutes ago, that there would be like anytime a subgenre really deals in like highly patriarchal or like hierarchical societies, I think that like the threat of ruination is there for women. So I bet you any money they're like mafia romances that traffic in this. Right.
Well, there are. I mean, if you think about it, okay, so mafia romance is traffic in virginity, and that's a different episode entirely.
Correct. Right.
But
so I didn't.
Idea of like I think. Listen, my favorite mafia book is Mila Finelli's Mafia Virgin.
Yeah.
Where like they are forced to marry, and then like they want to see blood on the sheets.
Yeah.
Right. Which is. Like, so I think the blood on the sheets implies if there is no blood on the sheets,
right,
then she was ruined when she went to that bed.
Right.
Listen, it's great. He won't allow that bullshit. It's terrific.
Yeah, but I mean, I found myself thinking like, or, you know, so anytime there's like a really highly like, and it's about gender roles, of course, right?
Yep.
You know, anytime there's like a subgenre that like really, like I said, like traffics in that, then I think that you could find like stories of ruination and then, you know, stories of survival and recovery. And I think like that's one of the things I liked about like Ride Steady is it opens with her in that situation, right? We don't have to really read the scenario by which it came about. She just tell him later, right? Like her new man, she's like, here's what happened to me and here's how I got here. And we sort of like piece it together. But I think like anybody, I mean, I think my mom in her generation was really aware of friends of hers who, right, got out of marriages and had nothing. And so I think like I found myself really thinking like, well, what is ruination for a lot of women now is like there's no right, like you have been cast out of the safe, what you thought was the safe place of your marriage, and now there's nothing.
Well, I don't feel ruined at all by this episode.
I hope not.
And I actually, as I said, I'm for being compromised. I'm pro it. Everybody get out there and get compromised.
Have a good time while you're doing it.
Enjoy yourselves. I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop. We are Fated Mates. You can find us every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us online at Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads so far. If you are interested in scoping out our website, you should. There's now that collections page I talked about during the episode. Also, head over if you're just looking for a cool bookish community with where you can record your books and engage with other people who also love your books, the books that you love. You can head over to pagebound.co, which is where we're hosting a quest. You can read. If you read some number of our deep dives, you get medals and like flair. It's a very fun community of readers. But if you want a place where you can just like flat out talk about romance and a million other things with a million other people who are also Fated Mates listeners, the place to go is our Patreon, because the Patreon gives you access to the Magnificent Firebird Discord, where you can talk to and find friends across the globe who love romance just as much much as we do. You can do that at patreon.com/fatedmates, or as always, head to fatedmates.net and you can find links to absolutely everything. While you're there, don't forget to click on show notes. You'll find a list of all the books that we talked about this episode, along with links to anything else that sort of randomly wandered through our mind. Anyway, if you get ruined this week, we hope you're having a great time doing it. Also, don't forget that if you stick around after this week's episode, you'll be able to hear a sneak peek of Piper Rain's The One I Didn't See Coming in duet narration in audio. Thanks to Piper Rain again for sponsoring this week's episode.
Chapter 1. Emmett. I leave the bathroom and jog down the stairs, overhearing my brother Jude talking to Dad in the kitchen. Dad decided to ambush us today, asking all of us to meet at his house. We all know it's about business because first, he's making his famous burgers, which he only cooks when he's trying to get my two brothers and me to agree on something. Second, it's for sure about business because if our family meeting was about anything other than business, it'd be held up on Daisy Hill at Mom's burial plot. None of us want to be here. Ben groaned because he didn't want to be away from his soon-to-be bride for longer than a minute. Jude bitched because we all know what this meeting is about, and he's been delaying it for months. You have no choice. I promise you that when the baby comes, you'll want more time at home. Sadie will need you. A kitchen chair screeches against the vinyl floor. But Dad, I walk into the kitchen, interrupting them. But neither one bats an eye because my family doesn't keep many secrets. Or can't keep any secrets, more like it. Are we still trying to get Jude to give up the reins? I grab a water from the fridge and smirk at Jude just to piss him off. It's an easy task any day, but especially today. You'd think I was some up-and-comer trying to take over his cushy job the way he protects his responsibilities on the ranch like a growling dog anchoring his jaw in a pull toy. I don't want his position on the family ranch. Hey, did I tell you we're way past 1 million views on your baby girl's gender reveal video? I flip the chair around and straddle it. Sit right, Emmett, my dad scolds. What's up his ass? Act like you're ready, he adds. Ding, ding, ding. There's the reason he's suddenly giving me hell about how I sit in a chair. Should I go put on the suit I wear to funerals? Want to know my strengths and weaknesses? We can have a formal interview if you like. Dad inhales deeply through his nose. Ben walks in the back door like a damn stealth bomber. How long is this going to take? Shit, Jude says, jolting back in his chair. Just sit down. I'm not sure why I have to bribe you all to have a meeting regarding the ranch. Dad puts down a plate of burgers in the middle of the table. He'll probably never give us the secret to what he puts in the meat, but damn, he makes the best burgers. After Mom died, it was all he made for a long time, but we never grew sick of them, which says how good they are. We all reach in, hands smacking hands, hands pushing hands out of the way to score as many as we can. Thanks, Dad, Jude mumbles and moans over his first bite. You should quit the ranch and open a burger joint, I say. You'd have a line around the block, Ben says. All of us take huge bites as if we haven't eaten in a week. Kind words from some boys who are afraid of why I called them here. Dad sits back, his burger on his plate, watching us. He does this every once in a while, watches us. I've never asked why, but I think he's impressed he raised us on his own, for the most part, and we're not jackasses. Well, most of the time, we're not. Eat, Dad. Ben nudges his arm. I will. Jude finishes first, which is why he had the nickname Garbage Disposal when we were younger. He was always the first to the table, no matter the meal, and the first finished. So, why are we here, other than me taking over Jude's position? I smile wide and wink at Jude. He blows out an annoyed breath, his usual reaction to my razzing. You're not taking my position. Are you sure about that? Ben joins in on the fun. The problem with having 3 boys is that it's always 2 against 1. You can all fuck off. Dad? Jude pulls out his phone and looks at the time. Sadie is expecting me. There's plenty to take home. Dad glances toward the Tupperware containers on the counter. Another good thing about not having a woman, I get another burger meal for myself. I smile at the 3 of them. And the use of your hand tonight, while Jude and I will be snug inside. Enough, Dad says. Don't talk like that in front of me. I'm not your buddy at the bar, and the women in your houses are like daughters to me. I don't want to think or visualize. He shakes his head. Just no. He gives Ben his look, the one he mastered after Mom died, and he had to raise 3 hellions on his own.